Oliver, thank you for joining us. Today's Martin Luther King's Day.
That's right. You asked me earlier if I did get to know the King family back in the 1990s. After JFK, I wanted to make a movie about Martin Luther King very badly. And I actually went to Memphis and I walked that whole area and I hit the garbage strike and the motel room. And I had a wonderful idea. It was based on things I had read, but I wanted to bring together his last night of his life, that incredible night when people visited him, and there was a lot of controversy about that. And I got to know Ralph Abernathy's daughter pretty well, and I read his book, and she was a great influence. And Ralph Abernathy got a lot of bad press about Martin Luther King, but he really cared about him and loved him, and it was in the book. He felt it, and so many people have appropriated the King legacy, including the children. And the children were very strange. I mean, the problem was the mom was still alive. And we wanted to do the story, the real story, which was, here was a wonderful, incredibly extraordinary man under enormous pressure. And it was the pressure that interested me. So, I mean, it was, he was a figure, a sacred figure, an example. At the same time, he was a man. And he had needs of a man. And this is where we were, in that area. So there was a lot of women in his life, and obviously Hoover played up that thing, but it was something that we had crossed sacred ground. So when the press attacked me, especially me, because of JFK, they went after, when they heard about King, they went nuts. And Time magazine, all of them, said that I was going to do another conspiracy movie on King. Well, in fact, that was not the angle, because I did meet some people, and I actually met with James Earl Ray before he died in prison, and it was a fascinating character, and I do believe there was a conspiracy, but it wasn't the main gist of the movie at all. It was really about the pressure he was under to try to keep together all these groups and factions. The New York liberals, and of course his great position on the Vietnam War, which provoked so much resentment. And it was a wonderful movie, never got made, and the press really destroyed it. And the kids, all that, the mother, and then the black pastors in the South who were conservative got on the case and started yelling about how I was going to make him into a sex maniac and all that. So there was no way I could survive this, although there were many people in the South, also among the judges and black church people who said, tell the story straight. That's the most important thing. And that's what we thought we had.
And did you have a finished script that they were attacking, or just the very idea of you doing the movie?
I would have finished it, but it was just so disheartening a situation. Like, it's hard to make a movie, as you know, but when the odds are stacked against you before you start, it was just too much uphill battle.
Well, has there been one particular movie other than that which was the hardest to get made because of political content? What a lot of people don't understand is any movie is hard to get made, politics aside. Just working the studio system, you know, you get a Purple Heart for going through what you've gone through. But with political content, was there any one of the films that you felt this was tough specifically because of what it was saying, other than the King movie?
Oh, I would say it happened so many times I can't remember. You know, honestly, the W movie was not, I think out of the whole W movie, the George Bush movie, not one single American entity was really interested. We got equity of about $1.5 million roughly from an American producer, Bill Block. And the rest came from Germany, Australia, and 55% came from Hong Kong. So it really was a struggle to make that movie. It was truly done independently, and Lionsgate picked it up. And then Nixon, they passed on it, and I had a tremendous legal wrangle with Nixon. It cost me my contract at Warner's, and I moved over to Andy Vanya, who was an independent producer, who actually did let me do what I wanted. But it cost, you know, the picture was extremely controversial for many people. But I got to do what I wanted. That was no holds barred. But that was the last one, and then after that, it just got harder and harder.
Because
and then I went into when I got into the documentaries, the Castro. I did three Castros. Two have been finished. I did three Castros and one Palestine, everyone was a battle, every single one. And I did Chavez last year called South of the Border, which is going to be another one. It's going to be hard, but we got it, distributor, Cinema Libre, and Showtime. So we will get some exposure, unlike Comandante, which was my most ambitious documentary. That was 90 minutes on Castro. We took it to Sundance. We showed it. I never wanted to go to Sundance. I just said something was wrong. HBO had the damn movie, and they believed in Sundance to get the word going. We went out to Sundance and showed it. It was, of course, like every movie I make, mixed. People hating it, loving it, and blah, blah, blah. But next thing I know, Roger Ebert said wonderful things about it. It was a good movie. It really is. A lot of work went into it. Castro. It's a personal story, and of course it was attacked as a political hagiography, and the emails started to come into HBO like in quantity. Organized emailing by the Cuban American community in Miami and in Upper New York, Jersey. You know, it was just horrible. And HBO promoted the damn thing. It was on the air, promos, really nice looking things, and then they bowed to the email pressure, I guess the advertising pressure, and I think that there might have been some influence from the Bush White House. It was 2002, and they took it. They didn't even tell me. It was taken off the air. The promos were taken off, and with 2 weeks to go, it was canceled.
Wow.
Never got back on.
And it's on DVD though, right?
And it's a harmless. No, it's not even on DVD because we don't have the American rights. Oh. It's complicated with the Spanish ownership. It's on YouTube for free, which is great.
Yes.
But in 5 parts or 8 parts or whatever. But it really is a lot of work, and it was that's a year's work off and on, with a year and a half almost of just for nothing. You know, that's why I love what you're doing, because you're really getting it out there, and you're making stuff that matters and it's good, and you don't have to pull your punches. You know, but in those days it's just so hard. HBO is pseudo-conservative. You know.
And which is the hardest part? You referred to the mixed critical response. We were talking before about looking at rough cuts and wanting to kill yourself. Which is harder?
It's this whole issue in America, and I have a theory about it. Of course, you think I'm nuts.
No.
I think America has a real hang-up on itself. I think that's... if you attack American policy, I think you're in for it. I mean, I really don't think that you have there's a certain, every time that I do something, there's a certain threshold that I reach on the internet and in the news media and among television and film critics. It's the same gang, and they say the same things over and over again, like I'm whitewashing Castro. You know, which is insane. It's ridiculous, considering all the dictators we've supported in Latin America who have done horrible things. Castro, relatively speaking, has done very little harm. But of course, it's the same thing as with Chavez. It goes on and on and on. Chavez does all these things to raise the poor people in Venezuela, and he's attacked ruthlessly by the same people over and over again here, including the New York Times and that group, all the liberals, so to speak. Castro, the same thing. And it's always that threshold I reach, and it never changes. And having come through the JFK assassination and seen the same thing happen to Garrison, and it seems to happen to the same people over and over again. There seems to be a paid-for press, a paid-for group out there. They go on into the blogosphere forever, and they use the same words, they cycle it up, and they attack you or me or anybody who tries to bring some light to the debate with the same old... Oh, he hates America, and it's, America is a bad guy, but we're not. And they go on and on and on, and it's the same argument over and over again. You're old enough, I'm old enough to know there's something wrong here. And don't you think, when Henry Luce and C.D. Jackson, all these guys, they were assets of the CIA. I think that the CIA, if it's got any brains at all, owns about 25 to 30% of the blogosphere. And these guys are just, they're paid minions who just write the same stuff they're told. Get Oliver Stone, get Robbie Greenwald, attack them, keep attacking them, because you got to keep up. You got to remind the public of how distorted we are. And it's a given. So in the mainstream media, establishment media, we are always a bit of the joke, right? I don't know why people from the right people who are complete idiots are taken with a grain of truth. And this, don't you find that to be the case increasingly in this country?
Yes, I mean, I'm in a lucky position because there are millions of people who support Brave New Films, and they go to fight for us when we get attacked.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, have you ever thought about, given the new tools, the new media, Twitter, Facebook, some great bloggers, I think a few of them, have you thought about sort of organizing forces who would be supportive of you to go back at the bad guys?
No, I think obviously to me, I've fought so many battles in film that I'm just tired, but I'm glad to, I've used to some degree the internet as much as possible, but I don't really do it like you do it. I'm still in film, I'm still trying to make films, and it is hard. Yeah. It's very hard.
Well, I want to volunteer right here publicly to bring the friends together on the next battle you have.
Let's do that.
I'm sure there are people in the audience that...
It'd be nice to get, it seems like it's a civil war.
It is. But I will tell you, when you do get attacked, it's an extraordinary sense of freedom and emotion when people you don't know are blogging or writing or emailing or calling in support of what you do. And that, to me, has been the great game changer moving into this kind of world. I see. Let me ask you a question going back to the politics itself. Your parents were conservative, I think I read, or not. Did you, what was your transformation? Was it one aha moment? Was it gradual? Was it, it was gradual? From what period of time, and what were the impacts that moved you towards your politics?
My dad was a Republican, anti-Roosevelt, and I grew up in New York City, and Castro was the enemy. He was a horror show. I mean, I was at that age when Castro, I used to have fights with a friend of mine who was a liberal. I'd say, I sounded like these guys on the, like Rush Limbaugh. He said, you don't know what Castro's doing. He's going to destroy our country. I really believed all that. I was brainwashed. I supported Goldwater in '64 when I was in college because I thought he was a tough guy. I liked that. And then I went to Vietnam and I saw what war really is, really is. And I came back a disillusioned veteran, but not with a big political consciousness. I just knew the war sucked, and it was like Afghanistan. It was just an endless hole filled with corruption. People were making money. Soldiers were dying for no reason. And the strategy was all screwed up. And we were holding land that we never held. We'd lose men. We'd disappear back in the base camps, come back out to the same piece of land 2 months later, lose more men. There was nothing, it made no sense. And information we would get would not get through. It was a blunder. I mean, we were going around in circles. It was eventually demoralizing in the sense that you just try to survive. That was it. Just try to get home. But even then, I came back really more disillusioned and alienated, and I didn't believe anything. I was an anarchist, I suppose. I wanted to off Nixon.
We'll cut that part of it. We don't want you in prison.
No, I just thought, I was at NYU Film School, and they were all so radical, but they wouldn't do anything except yap. I said, well, let's get some guns and do this fucking thing. I mean, that's what I felt. At that time, it was a very radical time. And I just don't think, I didn't think they were serious. So I was all fucked up and angry and violent, and gradually I reintegrated into society and became more civilized again, and found my way, and I started to speak up more and more. I think meeting Ron Kovic in the late '70s really influenced me, and Richard Boyle on Salvador. And then making movies, so gradually, I was a slow learner, but I still am. But when I wake up, and I feel strongly.
So in addition to Kovic, were there other people along the way, or books along the way?
How many beautiful girls would talk to me? And, how come all the beautiful girls seem to be more, well now, no, a lot of the beautiful girls are more conservative. Actually, the Ann Coulter types, I guess, are all over the place. But there were so many of them back then that were radicals and hippies, and they would tell me stuff and half believe it, Nixon... I believed Nixon in '68, I'll tell you that. I thought that he would end the war. And it was clear that there was a lot more going on. I found out a lot more about Nixon. And I'd say around the 76, 77. When I had a lot of faith in Carter in 76 at the New York. I was in New York at the Democratic Convention there. It was all the city was. That was a great year. You know, we all thought the world was going to change. And the 76. And you know what happened with Carter? He got Brzezinski, didn't he?
Yeah. And do you see any relationships between the hope with Carter and the hopes with Obama? And
yeah, I see the same euphoria and probably the same disappointment. If anything, there might be a very close similarity between the two. I think the best, as you know, from my point of view, the most hopeful president we ever had was John Kennedy in this whole post-1945 period. Roosevelt and Kennedy would stand out. Carter certainly had great intentions in the beginning and said good things, but was unable to carry them through. The national security state has gotten only stronger and stronger. It's got a stranglehold. I think it's wonderful. I mean, I think an exercise in the morning in frustration would be to pretend you're Obama and try to, how are you going to get through this? How do you deal with this media that's against change, real change? How do you deal with it? How do you deal with Congress? How do you deal with the Supreme Court that's took us out of the, took us into another atmosphere in 2000? I mean, took us into another era of madness. How do you deal with it? How do you get away? There's no way that our government can move except to a massive kind of evolution. And I don't know how that's going to happen right now.
And when you wake up in the morning and think, you're Obama or any of those things, does that lead you to think about doing a film on it? Or do you have activism separate from your film work? How do you balance those things?
I don't chase the news as a filmmaker, although my last 3 films have been close to the recent events, but there's still the W movie was made it ends in 2004, so there was about 4 years after that serious situation. You need a little time to process it and feel it, otherwise you're writing a first draft of like a newspaper. No, the events are tricky, and the patterns are hard to find. I am doing perhaps the most interesting project in my life is the 10 hours I'm doing for myself, really. We sold it to Showtime, and we'll sell it abroad, and it's a 10-hour documentary, 1 hour each, on I called it The Secret History of the United States. It's written by Peter Kuznick out of American University. He's a historian on nuclear studies, and he's written several books. And we're popular, and there's another historian, Matt Graham, was involved, and then I'm doing another draft, and we go back and forth. But basically, we're trying to make this a fascinating, exciting view of American history that the average American teenager, college student doesn't really know. It's there. These are facts that have been on the front pages, but have been ignored over time. So we're going back and saying, look, these are the facts, but think about it in this pattern as opposed to that pattern. So that's what we're trying to do. It's a big challenge for me, but it's really something for my kids, because I have 3 of them, and none of them have learned American history. Again, it goes back to American history as ethnocentric. We learn it from the American interest outward. We don't really learn world history.
And what inspired you to do it at the 10-hour? Was there, again, one moment?
I've been attacked so much for fiction movies and dramatic movies that why not just lay it down the way you think happened? I mean, I formed a worldview as a result of all the people I've met in movies through the years and in the movies I've done. And the origin text is from Kuznick, because he feels strongly. It started with the bomb, as many people would know. I mean, the 1945, the Truman period is a key period, and we go back into 1900. We explore the roots of this imperialism with McKinley and Roosevelt, the Teddy Roosevelt. Fascinating story. We go to the parallels, for example, between the Bush-Gore election of 2000 and McKinley-Bryant election of 1900. We try to draw the parallels for people to see it in a different way. You don't get it in school, certainly not in American schools. Certainly not in American high schools. I can't speak for colleges, because some colleges have very good courses.
And the form will be interviews or news clips or combination?
No, it's all archive and story. We're trying to really write it so that it flows. We don't want to have talking heads too much. Very few. So it's really like, here are these old pictures that we've dug up from all over the world, from Russia to Germany to America. Film that some you know, some you don't know, and give you a new way of thinking about it. So it's really it's really a challenge to do that. I've done it in films like JFK, where you tell a story through archive, but This is the whole nut.
Yeah.
This is the whole thing.
With a narrator.
Yes, so far it's myself doing the narrator. But if it holds up, it's going to hold up. I mean, I have to make it entertaining. Every hour's got to work.
Yes. Well, that's
it's a big challenge. It takes a lot of time, along with Wall Street, which is also due out this year.
And so what's the theme of Wall Street? How does it relate thematically to the first Wall Street? What made you decide to do it right now?
It's a bookend. Gordon Gekko, Fox, it was a surprise hit. And I wouldn't have done it right away. I had no interest in doing another Wall Street movie. It was 22 years later. But it was a bookend. It's a good bookend to this mess because we never thought it would get as out of hand. We thought it was going to end. I mean, we thought the bubble would blow in '87. It didn't. It got worse and worse and worse. So now we had an even bigger bubble in 2008. Not just a prime, not just a subprime housing fantasy collapse, but really on the biggest possible level of all, it's a credit bubble. It's a lack of credit. It's a lack of belief in the banking system, a lack of belief in capitalism. This is a tremendous attack to the system, heart attack, a warning. It was like a quadruple bypass here. And we got a serious warning, and unfortunately, as usual, that's why I think it's a comedy now. I don't think the original had a lot of funny. It was not as heavy drama. The first one, it had a lot of comedic effect. I think this one's also going to end up as a comedy of manners because no matter what happened in 2008, nobody really goes to jail. You know, the people who get hurt are off camera. We don't see them that much. Main Street, the blows are absorbed quietly in the dark. So I think what's unfortunately is going to happen is they're going to be, as we say, the insanity is bound to repeat itself unless there's a significant reform. Some people would say that because in 1987 we still had the Soviet Union around, but by 1991 when our so-called Cold War enemies disappeared, we lost all our discipline since then because we had an enemy. Therefore, we had to provide a social fabric in Europe. The European model was in between Russia and America. In America, we had to think about the good of the people, but when Soviet Union was gone, we had nobody to impress anymore. We could just say, fuck it, we're just going to make money now. And the free market model got insane, especially in Latin America, where I spent a lot of time doing the Chavez thing. They don't like IMF there. They don't like the central banks. And the whole region started to go to the left, largely because of the IMF.
And did the Wall Street movie, the part 2, begin before the collapse? Were you already working on it, or was it the collapse that set you up?
I got reinterested after the collapse. So, they'd been working on it before, but I came aboard after the collapse.
And you're dealing with
what collapse? I mean, heart attack.
Yeah, heart attack.
And the guy's back with a quadruple, sitting at home eating butter and salt. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, the bonuses are bigger. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
The banks have lost their meaning. The banks were there to serve us and make a slight profit. That was the whole point. That's what the bank rules were until they got deregulated by such major assholes as Phil Gramm, who's a senator from Texas.
Yes. So,
I mean, the deregulation has a lot to do with it, and the speculation is a huge amount to it. So it's the mother of all evil, because if banks are only making money, you saw Goldman, they're making money for themselves first. They shorted the market. That's what was great. We had that in the movie 6 months ago. That was in the script.
Really?
Now it's making news, but that's really ugly. Who are they working for? Themselves. 42% of corporate profit in 2008 was financial companies. It used to be about 16%, and that was a lot.
And given the heart attack and the rage that many people feel over it, how are you able to make it a comedy of manners when you want to go out and, I'm sure, and strangle some of these people?
Because what can you do? I mean, exactly. It's it doesn't come down like that. The villains are not easy to spot. They're slick. They wear suits and they appear in front of Congress. They're not like baseball players who take steroids, Yeah. They're steroid bankers, but you wouldn't know it. But excuse me, it's not just the bankers. Let's be honest, it's us too.
Yes.
The people, the consumer, has a lot to do with this credit bubble. I mean, the whole idea of an ATM machine is an obscenity. It's great, it's very convenient, but people started to go crazy with ATMs. People got crazy with credit cards. People with no money were taking trips to wherever they wanted in the world because they had cheap airline tickets and Freddie Laker. And everybody got a little bit into this orgy of spending, you know. So there was a bit of, when I say a credit bubble, it includes us too. We are, you know, it's not, I don't believe in just blaming it on bankers. That's what makes it a bit of a comedy. You see, we're all in it together.
And were you ever tempted to do it as a documentary, or did you see it right away as a fiction film?
No, that's my, no. Michael Moore did one.
Yes.
I don't think it's his best one, but you know, I think it's economics is a dull subject, dismal science, as they said, and I think to make this movie exciting is our challenge for us as filmmakers, and we really we got Shia LaBeouf, Carey Mulligan, Josh Brolin is the Jamie Dimon of the piece. Gecko was an ambiguous character who comes out of prison. He's broke, but he claws his way back in. And Frank Langella is a Jewish trader, like Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns type. So it's fun. I think I'm trying to keep it fun.
And of all of the films, was there any one of them that you were most pleased about the political impact, you know, holding box office and awards aside?
JFK, I think, and I think a lot of people saw it, and a lot of young people tell me to this day that it opened their eyes in a way that they had never thought of before. And they read a lot, and they it opened up their minds, you know, to another way of alternate ways of thinking, which is the best thing a filmmaker can do.
And so you have people will email you or write you or come up and tell you still?
Actually, on Wall Street, I wish I had commissions on all the people who came up to me and said, I was in law school or I was studying medicine and I saw your movie and I decided to go to Wall Street. And a lot of them became millionaires and billionaires. I did meet a couple of billionaires who said, loved this movie as a kid in college. I said, I didn't see this coming. I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, $1 million was a lot of money, even in '87. $1 billion is just unbelievable. It's 1,000 million. But we talk in billions so easily now. But we talked in millions in '87. I can't tell you the difference on Wall Street. It's reflected when you go there. You'll see it. And 20 years later, I mean, that's what's crazy. You can't take that kind of inflation in a society and and expect that society to hold together.
Yeah. And is there any particular thing we were talking before again about looking at rough cuts of movies and how tough that is on the director's emotional state? Is there anything that particular or specific that keeps you going, knowing how tough the battles are and the attacks and the self-challenges also?
Yeah, we're talking because he knows the feeling when you worked on a movie a long time and you see that first cut, what they call the rough cut or the director's first cut. It's the most depressing moment probably in the year. It seems like all that work was for nothing and the movie sucks and forget about it. You just completely fucked it up. And I had that experience just recently. But Robbie and I were saying, well, the truth is it only gets better now. So we hit the bottom, but I was at the bottom a few days ago. But so yeah, why do you go through it again? Exactly. That's a really good point. You know? Is
it the politics? Is it the storytelling? Is it just that's your fate?
I think
it's
it's the hope that if it does come together, it's a glorious feeling in yourself, and that it works for you at least.
And do you generally feel the movies come together for you? Again, forgetting about critical or box office for the moment?
Generally speaking, yeah.
Yeah.
Takes, but it's often as painful and a lot of work.
Yeah.
You need good people with you too. You have good editors help to analyze and to get this done. Cutting stuff you love, the game.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I first saw Salvador, and it was totally mind-boggling to me. The energy, the sense of reality was really, I thought, an extraordinary breakthrough in terms of ways of telling story. Were you consciously looking for a breakthrough, or you just said, this is the way I'm going to tell the story at the time?
It was always an energy picture, because Richard Boyle was based on Richard, who was an insane journalist I knew, really crazy, and so it had to have that manic energy. It reflected him. It was also done very cheaply. We had it was scrapped together and made out of paste, but it had a manic quality from the beginnings of Richard.
And was the manic quality, did you storyboard it, or most of that was handheld, if I remember correctly, I think.
Storyboard, it was a luxury. I don't think we afforded that. No, we shot it in Mexico, very cheap, and in San Francisco and Vegas. But, it's a crazy story. I mean, it's partly truth, partly fiction, but it did catch a little wave. I mean, it didn't make any money at the box office, but it did get me going. It got my reputation going and helped me to get Platoon made. It was also very low budget, but Platoon connected in a big way around the world.
Yeah. And then was Nixon hard to get financed, or you said it a little bit?
Extremely, yeah. It cost me quite a bit, actually, ultimately, because it was an expensive film, and it was about a bunch of 40, 50-year-old men with bad haircuts and ugly suits talking, but it was, to me, I think it's one of I love that picture because frankly it's got the tension, to have the tension going through a movie without any physical violence. Yeah. It's very hard to pull that off, and I think it worked for me because Hopkins, but also these supporting performances and the tension in the man. He's a three-dimensional figure, Nixon, unlike Bush, who's a two-dimensional figure. We had another problem on the Bush, which was how do you make a two-dimensional man interesting, and we did, I think we succeeded, but it was a different approach than Nixon, which was very convoluted. I don't know if you notice the structure, Nixon is extremely dark.
And do you have a preference with documentaries or films at this point in your life? If you could do either one, forgetting about financials or any of those?
It would be nice to move around freely between. You don't want to do a feature unless you really love it, because it's so much work and pain and disappointment mostly. So that I think you should only go there where you really have something to say. So it's nice if you can make documentaries in between. It would really be great. I'm doing this Castro. I saw Castro for the third time in August. A week before we shot Wall Street, I got a call to go down, and I saw him for 3 hours, and we shot him. He's 83 years old, and we're cutting that too. It's a mellower man. He's not in power anymore. His brother, I met him on the Chavez movie. He was also a very strong man, very powerful brother, Raul. So, but Fidel is mellowed out, and we caught him in his villa outside, a suburban villa outside Havana, with his wife. Children. It was a very suburban scene. It's a Castro you don't know.
And what are the plans with that? We were talking about that a little bit.
Hopefully it'll get into the American television system, but they hate Castro here so much. Yes. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, again, we'll volunteer at Brave New Films happily to
Thank you.
Help.
No, that makes a difference.
Really, and that again, to me that's been so freeing, not have to beg a middleman gatekeeper to put the work out, knowing that it can get out in some shape or form today. And I know that there'd be lots of people interested in seeing that. So you had a relationship with Castro? That's why they reached out to you at this point? Or?
Well, it's been three films, yeah. Yeah, he just wanted to talk? He trusts me on the editing that I'm not going to fuck him, which is what he gets when you get Mike Wallace or Barbara Walters there. They're always trying to, it's that gotcha moment, I got you, they want him to say something. It's not the point. I'm trying to make it, we're equal. I look at him as an equal, and we sort of talk as people, and we try to, we're not out to catch each other's flaws.
And there was a particular reason he wanted you to come at this moment to talk, or?
Who knows? I mean, he hasn't been in great physical shape to talk, so this was an attempt. He knew I was starting a movie, so he, I don't know. I mean, I do think he's fine. He looks healthy enough to live on for a while, but you never know. But it was nice to see him again. It's been a few years. And
the Chavez movie, how did that start, and when can we see it?
Soon. That's coming out this year. From Cinema Libre and Showtime. So it will get out in America unless something goes drastically wrong. But Chavez is, again, very demonized in this country beyond belief. And it's a very emotional issue. But that came about because of the hostage situation back in Colombia. And I went there once, and I was involved in a hostage release program thing, and we went to the jungle. Didn't happen. Interesting story. Came back, went back to see him a year later, And then we did this. It wasn't just about Chavez. It was a story about 7 presidents. I went to all these countries to interview who support Chavez. And I wanted the American public to see that this is not some iconoclastic figure, that this man is very much in the wave of the new Latin America. They don't want to be the dogs of America anymore. So he represents a new power, a new surge from Brazil to Argentina through Bolivia in that region. So it's called South of the Border.
What was the goal when you started on Chavez? Was it to tell a story the American people didn't know, or was there a particular...
Well, I tell you, it started as an attack on our media, because it starts with a Fox segment from where these 3 bonehead reporters are talking about dictators in South America and about coca, and how Chavez is a coca head, and it's all about a communist dictator, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And it moves on into the higher levels of our media and shows you just how corrupt and rotten the depictions of reality are. And then we try to go back and forth to show you what really happened and what you read about. And the Washington Post is right up there, boy.
Yeah.
But it's bad. This country has really bad news. I mean, really, it's just not right what's going on. And it's gotten worse in my lifetime. It was never quite right.
And where do you get your news from, or your information?
You. No.
Thank you.
You get your news how you can, but I think you get, at our age, you get a sixth sense about things, and you read through. You read some of the false news, but you read through it. I like The Onion, because I kind of laugh. I mean, I think we have to laugh at this point.
And are there any blogs that you read regularly, or any online?
What was the Obama famous headline? Black man gets worse job.
Yes. Yes. My 17-year-old son sent that to me when it came out. They've got a huge following. So as you think about the work you've done and your 3 kids, I have 4, and I know they're a big part of every decision I make. Is there particular things that you want them to know, that you want the legacy that inform the choices that you're making as we euphemistically enter our 3rd act, as they say?
You can't force your children to learn anything. My children, some of them are more radical than me, and some of them don't even care. I wouldn't. I mean, but all you can do is put out your best effort. And one day you hope, you might be long dead, that they would at least say, hey, Dad tried to say something and I wasn't paying attention. It's more likely that scenario. But really, it's important. The history thing, my history, I don't know what you learned in school, but it was pretty awful. And I was brainwashed. And everything is upside down. And I'm trying to sort this out still. And that's what makes it exciting, is history is changing.
Well, I want to thank you for all the extraordinary films and everything you've done. We look forward to having you come back and talk about your 10 hours.